Yeah, I don't want to do like the getting up thing. It's weird. I don't want to do the getting up thing.
Okay, so you're just gonna hang here?
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'm gonna start,
Is that
right?
okay?
Yeah, totally. Good evening. Hi, welcome to the Corcoran College of Art and Design and the museum. My name is Susan Sterner. I'm an assistant professor and director of photojournalism programs here, and I love my job. This is an amazing place to work because of all the different influences and voices and experiences that I have here on a daily basis. I'm constantly challenged by what we exhibit, who we invite here, fellow professors, faculty, staff, students, but I really, really love days like today where we have the opportunity to have a visiting artist with us in the classroom. Days like this, having a visiting artist in the classroom is sort of lifting the veil, if you will, on the world of art. It gives us the opportunity, and the students the opportunity, to meet people who are really solving problems, facing challenges, and figuring out ways to get their voices heard. And today was one of those days. Today we had with us Hank Willis Thomas. It was a long day. We had him here for a couple hours in the classroom with us, just talking about ideas, and he's such a wonderful, open, humble, and really, really engaging person, was able to draw people into dialogue in a really wonderful way. And then we shared lunch together today. He gave a gallery talk where we were treated to a cameo appearance by his parents. In fact, his mother, Deborah Willis, was a visiting artist with us just 3 years ago, and that was wonderful. I think of the Corcoran as a really intimate, dynamic school and museum, and part of that is how we interact with artists and what we exhibit here and who speaks here. One visit makes a big difference. Where did he go? Makes a big difference. And again, it's an opportunity for us to learn about an artist's practice and process, and to just hear new, fresh perspectives from artists working out there in the world. And because we're so small, one visit has incredibly strong, long-lasting ripples throughout the entire institution. And I love that Hank started his job today with solid advice. Don't be too quick to get a job. But I was also really, really struck by something he said when he was talking about one of his projects. He remarked that if you look at anyone long enough, you can see the beauty in them. And I felt like that was sort of there's a parallel there in what it's like to have a visiting artist come here. When you have the time to spend with them and to listen to their thought process and how they solve problems and how they address issues and what their big dreams are, you begin to see even more profoundly the power in their work. And I think that happened today with Hank and the time that he spent with us. And I'm really grateful to his time here, and on behalf of all the students and faculty, I just want to thank him for giving us 7 hard hours of his life today. And now I'd like to introduce Paul Roth, the museum's Senior Curator and Director of Photography and Media Arts. Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. Good evening. I have the distinct privilege of introducing our speaker tonight. Tonight's lecture is a part of the extensive series of visiting artist lectures that we have here at the Corcoran in conjunction with our exhibition 30 Americans. And I would like to, at the outset of the talk, thank the sponsor for that series, American Express, who helped to make all of these talks possible. Thank you. I would also like to ask you at the outset of the talk to please silence your cell phones for the duration of the lecture so that Hank can speak unimpeded. And I also want to mention that this talk is being video recorded and in fact live streamed on the internet. So during the question and answer session, we're going to have a microphone, and I'd like to ask you to use that so that everyone can hear your question clearly. Tonight's program is with Hank Willis Thomas, who is a photographer and multimedia artist currently based in New York and Paris, and seemingly mostly between the two cities, constantly traveling. Hank's work is on view here at the Corcoran, not only in the exhibition 30 Americans, which I hope you've all seen, but also in a solo exhibition of new work that we commissioned specifically for this time period called Strange Fruit. Hank made a body of new work that I think is really extraordinary, and I hope you've seen that exhibition as well. He was born in 1976 in Plainfield, New Jersey, and as a longtime Washingtonian, I'm very proud to say that Hank spent part of his childhood here in Washington and attended the Duke Ellington School of the Arts. After graduating from NYU's Tisch School of the Arts with a BFA in Photography and Africana Studies, Hank received his MFA in Photography and a Master's in Visual Criticism from the California College of the Arts in San Francisco. Hank is best known for his series Branded, which uses the language of corporate logos and advertising to investigate issues of history and race in popular culture. His work has been featured in multiple publications, and his monograph Pitch Blackness was published by Aperture in 2008. His work has been shown throughout the US and abroad at museums and galleries, including the Studio Museum in Harlem, MoMA PS1, and the Baltimore Museum of Art. His work was also recently featured in the 12th Istanbul Biennial. His work is included in many public collections, including the Whitney Museum of American Art, the Museum of Modern Art, the Brooklyn Museum of Art, and the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston. As an artist concerned with issues of representation and visual culture, Hank continues to work at the cutting edge of contemporary art practice, and that often brings him to collaborate with fellow artists and to work with students. He's received a New Media Fellowship through the Tribeca Film Institute. He was an artist in residence at Johns Hopkins University, and he has been a fellow at W.E.B. Du Bois Institute at Harvard University. And it is that aspect of his practice that made him, for us, an absolutely perfect person to include in our Visiting Artists series to come and work with our students here at the Corcoran College of Art and Design. Welcome, Hank Willis Thomas.
Kind of a bad sign when you get bored when someone's introducing you. It's like, you had to name all that? I'm not that impressive, you know. I mean, I really appreciate the introductions, both from you, Susan, and Paul. But this is an interesting experience for me because this is probably, I've done over hundreds of talks all over the world, and this is by far the most important one for me, and it's kind of scary. And for that reason, I don't know what I'm going to say. And I can say that because this is, you know, DC is where I'm from. And it's so hard to actually give a talk in front of everyone who's ever made a difference in my life. I hope the people on live feed missed this part, but I really want you guys to stand up. All of my parents, please. You too. All of you. Miss Paris. Miss Paris. Miss Stewart. I mean, I can't say. I mean, they say, you know, it takes a village to raise a child, and I think it took a large town to raise me. And it's just incredible, you know, to have had people love you the way I've been loved. And did you stand up? I'm sure there's people all around that didn't stand up. And there's best friends from high school, at least 3 here. This funny looking one in the back. And I mean, you don't get experiences like that very often where people who've known you your whole life in large number. My father has never seen me give a long talk. He only comes to short ones. And my parents got married in May 23rd, 2011, after being apart for 33 years. They've been waiting for me to move out. Not gonna happen. But there's a lot of people I owe thanks to, and it's a problematic talk because normally I talk in front of strangers and I feel weird about that. Occasionally there's good friends. Here it's like strangers, very old friends, and like I said, the people who made me who I am. And so I'm like, how do I give a talk that speaks to all those audiences? Because I want the students, many of whom I've met with today, I didn't cry, right? I want them to have an experience that gives them kind of what I think I can share, and I want the others of you to see another part of me. So, did my computer? Okay. So I'm kind of. It's a special opportunity. So I ask you to bear with me as I add some slides. And I know I'm supposed to talk for 45 minutes, but this is a one time, or I'm just like, it's not going to be more than an hour, I swear. But I really got to take this time. And I want to thank Caitlin and Phil, who's not here, and Natasha Logan for really making this show what it is. Because it's, I've been traveling. I have a lot of other projects that I've been working on, and through the support of the museum and Henry Taggart, I was able to make a whole new show, which I didn't even know what I was doing in March. And when you have a supportive institution, like ideas that I'd had in my sketchbook and I can't draw, but sketchbook, which you pointed out, for 7 or 8 years, actually coming to life, and the images you see in the Strange Fruit exhibition is really remarkable. And I just wanted to, so I'm just like, what do I do? So I swear I'll be good, but I just want to throw 2 slides in there all right, good, and you'll understand why I threw this in there in a minute. They really tried to get me to be responsible and do this earlier, but I have this. It's like I said. Cancel. I'm probably losing people online. You guys can't go anywhere. So, yeah, close this. And, okay, here we go. You ready? Because I'm ready. Can we turn the lights down? This I shouldn't have put in there, but I was in Vietnam a year ago with Natasha. We were traveling Southeast Asia, and it was my first time being in a communist country, and I saw this Buddha, and I felt welcome. There's this weird way in which you see these ironic things happening as globalization takes over, where you see even these really amazing or transcendental experiences and religions have become major parts of commodity culture, even in communist countries. And when I start talks, I often start with this quote from a book called Everything But the Burden by Greg Tate, and there was an essay in it called Eminem, the White Negro by Carl Hancock Rux, and he states, there's something called black in America, and there's something called white in America, and I know them when I see them, but I will forever be unable to explain the meaning of them, because they're not real, even though they have a very real place in my daily way of seeing, a fundamental relationship to my ever-evolving understanding of history, and a critical place in my relationship to humanity. When I read that quote, I was like, if I could ever plagiarize an artist statement, this would be it, because it speaks so much about the challenges that I'm trying to contend with in my work. My book, Pitch Blackness, which was published by Aperture in 2008, speaks to these issues. I titled it Pitch Blackness for 3 reasons. First, I say pitch blackness because of this experience I had where I felt lost and had to find myself all over. And then pitch blackness because advertising, which is a theme in a lot of my work, blackness is often pitched as a way to cash in on all these different ideas about urban society and street cool, whatever. And then lastly, there's a song by Roy Ayers called "Coffee Is the Color," and it hit me one day that I'd actually never met a black person, and I actually never met a white person. And I said, pitch blackness, off whiteness, coffee is the color of my skin. And it's just this kind of thing of recognizing that perhaps if we didn't judge ourselves and validate and identify ourselves on these kind of abstract kind of shades and saw that we were all different tones of brown, it might really affect the way that we relate to each other as people. But advertising is a really major factor in my work. And it's driven by images like this, by American Apparel, which I just, what do you do with this? Or images like this by American Apparel. And I start to wonder, where do these things begin? What are the roots? What are the origins? And one of the origins is this. How many people in the room know who this is? Who's that? Bert Williams. And many of you might know him more popularly as this, which I found Bert Williams was an African-American, Caribbean-American minstrel performer, and I found it really incredible that the way that he decided to depict himself off stage was so much in sharp contrast with the way that society wanted to see him. And I find this understanding of performing blackness for the other is something that I'm really fascinated with. But also things like this. Who knows who these people are? Well, half of the room wasn't born, I got to tell you guys. So who is this on the left? Mike Tyson and the other guy. Remember this? Because something's happened. I find it interesting how there's these amazing, perhaps subtle, because gender hasn't been crossed, but shifts in the status quo of power, representations of power, from one generation to the next that we've never seen before. And I'm curious how notions of race and identity will be affected for future generations with the arrival of the great white hope and the great black hope at the same time. But I also have to go back to the book, The Sweet Fly Paper of Life, which my mother found when she was, I think, 12 or something at the Philadelphia Public, 7. She remembers. At the New York Public Library, Philadelphia Public Library. And it was a collaboration between Roy DeCarava and Langston Hughes, where they collaborated to tell a story of African-American experience that she had never seen in a published format before. And that really sparked her interest and curiosity in photography, and it really led me kind of by default on a journey in her footsteps. This, as digging through her stuff, because I still barely ever leave her house when I'm in the country. I live in France, so when I go back to New York, it's just to visit my mom for 3 months. She wrote this paper, and the reason I'm showing some of these things is because some of you are in school, and this was her junior year in college, where she wrote a paper in 1973, the Independent Research Project, Black Contribution to Photography, 1840 to 1940. And so this project that she proposed then became her first book in 1986, and since then she's published almost 24 or more books, and she's won a MacArthur and Guggenheim, and what I found so fascinating is she realized that the way that African American photographers photographed the black experience was very much in stark contrast to the way that mainstream society did throughout and most people don't even recognize that black photographers have been making images since the advent of photography, and really she helped with her peers to rewrite history. And that's just something that I learned a lot from, because even all of you students are perhaps doing that. And this is a project that we did more recently in a show called Progeny, which is going to come to George Mason University in January. There's a piece called February called Sometimes I See Myself in You. And it's funny because I used to be Deb's son, now she's Hank's mom. And there is this way in which, for some reason, her genes are much stronger than my dad's. that people see us, people recognize me. I went to the Library of Congress and lit on just to like look at some stuff and so like, aren't you Deb Willis's son? Because they recognize my face, which is really amazing to have that kind of a relationship. But I'm really, and the reason I cried, because I'm really in DC only for one reason, because I wanted to be like my cousin Sunga, who is in these images. And in my book, I kind of chronicle parts of our life together. He was 4 or 5 years older than me. And when he was a sophomore in high school, he came to DC, to Alexandria, to go to this high school called Episcopal High School, which was a boarding school. And he was good at, every sport that there was, everything that there was, he was good at. And everything there was, I was not. But he loved me dearly and really supported me and didn't mind doing all the things that I couldn't do for me. And it's this weird, unique relationship that came to define me because when I got to go to Episcopal, grades weren't good enough. I wasn't a good athlete, but I was his cousin, so they let me in. And I remember one of the other great athletes at the school, Andre Gilbert. He saw me take a shot, like at a basketball court. He's like, "You ain't Juice's cousin," because and I had this amazing experience of having this white kid, Hunter Brawley, tell me that I wasn't black because he could dance better than me, he could play sports better than me, and he could rap. And all the black kids in the room saying, it's kind of true. And after a year of being there and not being able to afford actually going back, I had this devastating experience of actually, on the day of school starting, finding out I had to go somewhere else. And we were in Philadelphia on our way down, and my mom found out that I had to go to another school because we couldn't pay for the next year. And she called Claudine Brown, who's sitting here in the front row on the left, said, "My son has nowhere to go to school." And she said, "Well, I just moved to DC and I'm on the board of this school called Duke Ellington, and he can go there." They just started this, and I was like, "I can't sing, I can't draw, what do I do?" They just started this museum studies program, and he can be in that because we don't know what that is anyway. And literally with all my stuff packed, we went to her house, and her son Eben and her brought me, took me in, and I lived with them for almost a year until Aunt Claudine hired my mom and brought her to New York, to DC as well, to work with her at the Smithsonian. So I'm like, that was the pursuit and the bad luck that brought me here. And having this experience of going from an all-white male school in Alexandria, which is what Episcopal was at the time, with Confederate flags everywhere, to going to Duke Ellington, which was a co-ed, all-black school in the city, at the time at least, was really, and one was all sports, one was all arts. Everything was incredible contrast, and having to figure out, and I wasn't, the coolest person there either. And so having to figure out who I was in both of those spaces probably helped me define who I am now, because I had to figure out how to love myself. And it was such a great experience to be in school 9 to 5, literally 9 to 5 for 4 days. And I think almost everyone who went to my high school loved it because it was such a beautiful experience. And Miss Paris, who's my photography teacher, took me under her wing and allowed me to sneak in. I don't know, you gave me the keys to the dark room. I would be in school till after midnight, and because they just let me do it, And as museum studies students, we, with Miss Stewart, had exhibitions at the Smithsonian and all over, and got to go on these amazing journeys. And that's where I learned the power of juxtaposition in images. And so, I just had to look at these images because this is the second roll of film I ever took. And, and I found amazing, 1993, the 30th anniversary of March on Washington, I was looking at framing. And framing and context was something I was interested in very early on. These are images I used to apply to college. And I found that I was always interested in what was going on inside the frame, what was being framed. And this is the first roll of film I took in college. And looking at how kind of so many of the images I was taking were looking at kind of what's going on. Like you see subtle juxtapositions and frames in the images that I was making. And at some point I decided I was really curious about what I called the lie of photography and how the frame is so deceiving, because there's always something going on outside of the frame that can help us understand better kind of what's happening. So this is like sophomore year, and then at my senior year, I actually decided to take the frame outside and to actually try to talk about this manipulation by giving people frames and asking them to take pictures, or holding frames and taking pictures within pictures in the images. And this one, which I speaks to like a lot of the challenges that, you know, a lot of us who study photography are trained to kind of derive meaning from images. And there's also a lot of chance in images. I call this serendipity in red, because so many things if you look at this image, so many things had to go right for this image to work. Where someone had to get up, put on their red cap. My mom had to put on her red cap. I had to bring my camera. I had to bring my frames. And in the 30th of a second that I took the frame, someone walking down the street wearing a hat just like my mother's looks into a frame, into a dark restaurant at the moment that I'm pressing the button. And, you know, there's a red ketchup, and there's like all of these things that just kind of, I found so fascinating, like kind of what other things kind of take place when we go to take images. But after grad school, after undergrad, I should say, I was just living in New York, had no real agenda. Sangha and I were living in a one-bedroom apartment in the Village, and this kind of described our relationship, where I was taking pictures of us at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he was, so cool, he was asleep with his sunglasses on. And so I didn't really take any pictures with any purpose, but I wound up taking this picture, which probably means the most to me of almost any picture I took, because it wound up being the last picture I took of him alive. And he looked so peaceful in it. And this is the first picture of mine that was published in a newspaper, which was kind of strange for me, because seeing, the first opportunity, I'm like, wow, my picture's published in a newspaper, and it's the picture of my cousin, and reading about his life as in kind of sound bites, the ways in which, as the first time I realized that the news is actually really subjective. It says a good guy slain for a few bucks. Why is that headline even necessary? I wonder if it has something to do with the image. Killer shot him even though he didn't resist. So it's like basically some of the underlying tones are like, okay, if he was a bad guy, then he might have had it coming, and if it was a lot of bucks, maybe it was worth it. Killer. If he had resisted, maybe the killers might have been justified. And why is it necessary to make these excuses? And when you think about the numbers of young black men that were murdered, and how reading all of these ways they were trying to kind of pull on the heartstrings to say kind of why you should care about this one, really kind of disturbed me. And that next week we had the funeral, and this is the moment that photography died in my heart, because it's the moment that I took a photograph and it had no point. I felt like I needed to document the funeral, but then I was like, this image is not going to bring my cousin back, and that broke my heart. But I had already applied to grad school. And in the midst of in the midst of that, just happened to be applying to grad school. And when I got there, I was challenged because all I had were these images. And I went back to where he was murdered, and I photographed there. And I looked at the pictures of the funeral. And for the next 2 years, I was literally just in mourning and trying to understand kind of how to photograph kind of and express what I was going through. But it was this weird experience of how do you photograph something where the drama has already happened, And all these images were of my family members looking sad, and my mother got diagnosed with breast cancer, and my family was just kind of in this place where I felt like we were all kind of falling apart, which fortunately we didn't. And my Aunt Leslie, who's pictured here and is also here, who's been so strong, Sanga's mother, with, his, Sanga's only child, like I am, and she's just been such a trooper. And she gave me this image, and with this weird note, it says, "Hank, the pic's difficult to look at. Be encouraged." And I looked at it, and it was the hardest image to look at. And I looked at it, and it's the image she used to identify his body. And I know you're asking, why is he showing this? But this is where my heart is. But I saw that he wasn't Sanga Willis. He was just number 6002. And I realized, at the time, we couldn't afford a tombstone. We couldn't barely afford the funeral. And I was like, what's the evidence of his life? And I realized the only real evidence of his life was me, the people who loved him, my grandmother, his friends, our friends in common. And so I started this project called Bearing Witness, Murder's Wake, and about all the people who are left behind to bear witness to his life, and wanting to recognize that even if you're not, in our society, if you're, in the world, if you're not rich, these are the only evidence of your life. And I started making these incomplete grids, series over the course of 10 years where, and the missing people were the missing spaces were the people I never knew before, or the moment I wanted to take a portrait of my cousin through all the people who he knew and loved. And the empty spaces were the moments that I missed. And, it was kind of heavy because every time I saw somebody, Justin Cobb was the last person I photographed. It was, I'm like, okay, now I'm going back to relive this depressing point in my life, and I'm not a depressed person, and I had to figure out kind of how else could I talk about this. God bless you. And, it's important to laugh when you're crying, and I remember Sanga being this incredible athlete and always wearing, Air Jordans. That was like what you had to have if you were a great athlete, especially at the time. And telling us these stories about man, I was in Ozone Park, Queens, playing basketball. These guys tried to get me for my sneakers. I thought it was going to be goners, and because people were being robbed and shot and killed for Air Jordan sneakers. And I was reading this book called Michael Jordan and the New Trans-Global Economy. And it talked about how Nike went from being a $10 million company when Jordan signed on to a $10 billion company when he retired in 2003. And how all the ways that so many industries through the NBA, the Coca-Cola, Gatorade, became stronger transnational brands through the marketing of him. And one of the quotes that I found amazing was, it says, in 1960, if a white girl's, it's from Stanley Crouch, it's quoting him, in 1960, if white girls in the suburbs had posters of a Negro that dark on their wall, there would have been hell to pay. That kind of racial paranoia is not true in the country now. Today you have girls who are Michael Jordan fanatics and their parents don't care. And I was thinking about that because that's just like 4 years before he was born. So like in the quarter century, first 25 years of his life, he went from being a strongly racialized figure from the South to being this transnational, transracial, global figure. And so I wanted to take that literally. And I made this image, which I have to point out to the students here. It's because it wound up being this because I went to grad school and there were no photo majors in my school my year, and all of my peers would just say things like, "I like that picture because it's red," I like the colors. There's no real way for them to really engage in talking about images in the way that I was used to, and so I decided, it's like, how do I make work that they can speak to? And so I started to think of using logos and graphics because that's a language that they could talk to, and I used clip art to actually make this piece, which you can see is a reflection of something that's wound up in the show that you see today. And I started thinking about logos as our generation's hieroglyphs, and thinking about how I could talk about kind of other things through this kind of way of building. And I started thinking about advertising as being the most ubiquitous language in the world, because these symbols, these logos and marketing campaigns become embedded with so much meaning that they can be used for other purposes. But one of the images, first major pieces I made was this one called Absolute Power. And for me, it speaks about how, basically, to me, the origin of blackness. I like to point out that, 500 years ago in sub-Saharan Africa, there were no black people. There were just people. And it was only through I say that, the craziest thing about blackness is that black people didn't make it up. The Europeans, with a commercial interest in dehumanizing us, created blackness. And to me, for people from you think about Africa, it's a large swath of land with thousands of languages and religions and cultures, and you take people from diverse languages, cultures, religions, worldviews, and package them into ships and send them halfway across the world and tell them they're all the same. To me, and 500 years later, their descendants are still trying to figure out who they are. That's what I call absolute power. The fact that we are allowed ourselves to be defined by someone else's terminology and based off of something that was really just, to make money. And I was thinking about how slaves were branded as a sign of ownership and how today we brand ourselves. And one of the first images I made was this one, which you'll see is in 30 Americans. Branded head, thinking about how we all live in a moment of branded consciousness in Basketball and Chain, which speaks about how the idea of ascending for so many people is the thought of ascending through sports and entertainment, when that's not, it's by far the least likely means of success especially for anyone, much less an African American boy. And I started thinking about how credit cards are a form of indentured servitude, like the MasterCard, like who's the master, the actual interest that they have is actually to keep you owing them money. And I had to put my Afro-American Express in here since it's sponsored by American Express. And this became a collaboration with my friend Ryan Alexiev, who's a graphic designer. And I realized also that, there's ways in which my work can grow through my relationship with other people and the conversations we have. So, I photographed The Door of No Return, Absolute No Return. And then lastly, this piece of the branded series, Absolute, because death is absolute. And then the next collaborative project, and can we turn the light down a little bit, or all a bit, for a moment, if that's possible? This is a project I did with another artist named Kambu Ilajimi. It's called Winter in America. We can turn the light down on me, too. Yeah, oh. Off. Uh-oh. My QuickTime player my thing's not working, so I have to, oh, goodness gracious. This always happens. Sorry. I really don't know what's happening over here. Oh, I was going so well. I mean, I only cried, 10 times? No. It's just supposed to be going, oh, I know what it did. Sorry. Can we turn this light off too? And turn the sound up a little bit.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's Club National Underground Thunderbounds when I stop the ground. Like a million elephants, a silverback orangutan. You can't stop a train. Who wants up, don't come unprepared. I'll be there, but when I leave there, better be a household name. Weatherman telling us it ain't gon' rain. So now we sitting in a drop top soaking wet. In a silk suit, trying not to sweat. Hit somersaults without the net. But this be the year that we won't forget. 1999.
Yo, man, that was a good night, man. I'm glad I met you, brother. I ain't had fun like this in a long time.
That's what I'm saying, though, right? You had crazy fun tonight, right? Grandma home. Man, listen, this spot here is the John on Tuesday nights. Yo, I seen you in what, 15 years? Yo, when you gonna stop bullshitting in New York, come back home, man. Philly.
Y'all some wild boys. I'm saying though, whenever y'all want to come to New York, we can do this every night. To be honest, it does feel good to be near the family. Y'all feel me? It's cold out here. Y'all ready?
Yeah. Oh! Yo, Yo, where you been hiding?
I know that ain't Tyrose. Tyrose would have told me if he was coming out tonight. That ain't the truth. What's up, baby? Nah, I was just kicking it with my boy from back in the day. I ain't seen him in like 200,000 years. I had to call him 6 times, just to get him to leave his grandmama house. Whatever. Here, Teddy.
Yo, what's up, yo?
Yo, y'all know Teddy. Yo, and this is my man, Sunga.
How y'all feeling?
Yeah.
Yo, what's up? Yo, it's nice to meet y'all, but I left my coat in the car, so I gotta run. It's so cold out here, I feel like I'm gonna turn into chocolate pudding pop in a minute.
Hey, baby. You know, I've been feeling this to you like, I've been feeling like you been kind of unfaithful to me.
You was right, man.
Miss Cleo up in this motherfucker. Yo, I'm saying I had a total package over there. Give me the lie.
Yeah, she was fine, but did you see the joke?
Yo, hold on.
Yo, is he doing snow angels?
Hey, yo, Sunga. Yo, what are you doing, man? A second ago, you freezing, Mr. Pudding Pop. Now, you rolling around in the snow. You gonna fuck around and catch pneumonia. We ain't kids no more, man.
Yo, that's a nice chain.
But who the fuck are you?
Wish I had a chain like that.
Hey, man, yo, we ain't even got nothing.
Man, give it up.
Hey, man, who are you, man? We all good people here, you know what I'm saying? Yo, are you really trying to rob us in front of all these people, man? Yo, I can't believe this shit, man.
Shut the fuck up and give up your shit.
We all about love and shit, man.
Man, don't fuck with me. Just
don't move. Yo, give him your keys.
Come on, man, chill. This chain ain't even real, man.
Stay down.
it's shining, man.
Come on, bruh. How you gonna do that to him, man? He just got that chain. How you gonna do that?
Man, just give up your fucking chain.
Just fucked up, man. He was having a good ass night.
Let's go. Yo, come on. Let's get the fuck out of here. Oh, fuck. Berto.
Oh, man, I thought you was watching them. Where the fuck they go? Fuck it, let's get out of here, man. Let's get the fuck out of here. Yo, come on, man, come on.
Yo, what'd I do with him?
Yo, just leave him. Fuck it, man. Just bang him. Just do it.
And now it's a winter. Winter in America. Yes, and ain't nobody fighting, 'cause nobody knows what to say. Save your soul, Lord knows, from a winter in America.
So this is a piece, obviously called Winter in America, that I did with my friend Kambui Olajimi, which basically depicts the last 5 minutes of my cousin's life, as was told to me by the guys he was with that night. And we used the G.I. Joe action figures I played with as a child to tell the story in stop motion animation, partially because my cousin loved Gumby for some reason. Because it was this goofy format, he was always so happy. And I was like, how do you tell a story that, everyone's heard 1,000 times before in a new way? Young black male killed over nothing. And I felt like I needed to tell the story. And I realized I was in the supermarket in California, and I saw Roadblock, who was the second black G.I. Joe, which meant a lot to me when I was a kid. And he had like a machine gun and a laser and a machete. And it said on the box, for children ages 5 and up. And I was struck, I was dumbfounded, because I could barely even read when I was 5. But I had license to create scenarios around violence, and as most boys in America do, if not other parts in the world. And I really thought this was a profound way to tell that story, because it's so disarming with the stop motion animation. But Kambui and I also wanted to tell the story through photographs, because both him and I are photographers, and realized that photographs allow you, the viewer, to bring your own meaning to the story, and we self-published a book. And whereas the film kind of carries you through it and tells you what to think. And Kambui also pointed out that it's only says for children ages 5 and up because younger children might choke on the little gun and die. So it's not for like a moral thing, it's about the liability for the corporations. And thinking that we live in a society that says it doesn't condone violence, kind of this amazing hypocrisy which we all partake in, and that our fantasies that, every night, right now, there's probably 100 people getting killed on cable TV right now because we care much more about seeing things like that than, seeing people do anything else, apparently. And I, to what degree I can like to shine light on that without, and acknowledging the hypocrisy in it. But also around that same time, for a show at the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, I revisited that picture from my cousin's funeral, and using the language of the MasterCard Prices campaign, because I remember being in the funeral home where there was the $2,000 casket and the $5,000 casket and the $7,000 casket and all the things that they had to buy for him, and watching my mother and my aunt try to figure out kind of what to do was one of the most heartbreaking experiences, because there's this unspoken thing like, do you love him more if you buy the $7,000 casket, or could you not afford to love him enough if you buy the $2,000 casket? And either way, it was this box of wood that was going to be thrown in the dirt, never to be seen again. It was this impossible decision for me to watch them make, so I left because I could. And I knew either way it was going to go on a credit card, the MasterCard. And so that's kind of where the resolution of that piece that I took 4 years later happened. And with my work, there's often that trajectory. And I was able to exhibit it in Miami and at the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, which commissioned Winter in America. And I also got to display it in Birmingham. And it was the first time I actually had to deal with controversy.
David and Rick, proud to be the most watched local newscasts in Alabama. Fox 6 News, the most powerful name in local news.
Fox 6 News reporter Melanie Posey takes a look at it. She joins us live from the museum tonight. Melanie?
Well, Janet and Devin, here is the picture that we're talking about. You can see the MasterCard logo and you see the MasterCard slogan, so you think it's a MasterCard ad, right? Wrong. What it is doing is creating a lot of dialogue, and those here at the museum say that is exactly what it was designed to do. The picture hangs boldly on the back of the Birmingham Museum of Art, an African-American family grieving at a funeral. The caption, a spinoff of the MasterCard advertising campaign. Three-piece suit, $250. Gold chain, $400. 9mm pistol, $79. Bullet, 60 cents. Picking the perfect casket for your son, priceless. To the unknowing eye, it brings a strong response.
Yeah, that's offensive to me too, because it seems like it's stereotypical that people are just tagging the black community with the things that we use, the things that we buy, things that we flaunt.
And I'm not black, but I would think that it would be offensive to black people.
I think when someone walks off the street, they're wondering, is it an ad? If not, why is it up here? What is it? What's the point? Why does MasterCard have their name on it?
This is not an ad. It's contemporary art on display at the Birmingham Museum of Art. The artist, a young black man by the name of Hank Willis Thomas. The picture taken at his own cousin's funeral after he was killed during a robbery.
He wanted to get at the grief his family was feeling and the frustration with this sort of cycle of violence that's sort of afflicting the country. I think he's using the term priceless here, not in a satiric way, but to suggest that life is the most priceless thing of all.
Willis relies on artistic license to play off with the MasterCard logo, a key he uses knowing how much Americans connect with advertising. After learning what it's all about, Jennifer Swenson's response turns from offense to grief and eventually hope.
I guess the artist had a choice. He could have picked up a gun and he could have sought revenge. And what this artist chose to do was to make a statement, even though it's offensive to some people, if it changed one person's thought process in life, then it would be worth it.
Now, because of the response to this picture, the museum has put up this explanation. However, as you can see, it is rather small in comparison to the picture. Some people may miss it, so they plan to add a much larger placard later. Also, the curator says the reason this piece is outside is because it was too large to fit inside the...
See what happens when you get on the news? it's it's fascinating because as a quote unquote political artist, the thing you hope the most is that one day you'll be talked about in the news again, like they only have 4 minutes at best to say whatever they can say, and again everything gets dumbed down, but also reveals so much. There's the African American woman says like it's offensive to me because the African American community was often offended because it talks about the things that we buy and flaunt like guns and gold chains and suits, and then the white woman says I could see I'm not black. Like, see how it's offensive to to the other team. Foul. It's like, it's and then it's like okay, and but then it's not an ad, so it's art, so you can't be offended, and it was made by a young black man, so it can't be racist, and it was taken at his own cousin's funeral, so it can't be insensitive. There's all of these ways in which kind of it says who has the right to make work about what. And who and feel what about what, and of course there's that brilliant nugget at the end where she, clearly designates my two choices, go kill somebody or make art, it's like I think I made the right decision, but it's so there's and someone later I forgot to mention because we had this whole thing with the other museum with the Corcoran, the Yerba Buena, where they were like, didn't want me to put the MasterCard logo on, and they were like worried about getting sued. But then finally, I stood my ground. I said, you can't change my art. And they were like, fine, we'll put it up, but if we get a cease and desist order, we'll have to take it down. And we had this bet of how long it would be up for. And after it was up for 6 months, one of the art handlers at the museum actually came up to us, just like, of course we didn't get sued. How else was MasterCard going to get their logo on the front of a major downtown museum? So even in being critical, of the man, I become, I get, what's the word I'm looking for? Co-opted, So there's this really amazing irony that happens. But around the same time that I saw this happened, I was in New York visiting my mom. That's my joke. Because to be an artist is kind of expensive, so you got to visit your mom a lot. And I was I saw this ad on a bus stop, and it was, you guys know who this guy is? Who is it? What's in the ad for? How do you know it's a Reebok ad? Where's the Reebok product? And it hit me that we're at this moment in time where you don't even need a product to have an ad. It actually doesn't even have to say the name of the product. It could just have 3 letters, because we become so media literate and so conditioned to decode these things so fast. And it says, nothing offensive. It's this little thing like, it says, I am what I am. And so, if it's just a criminal, he may be a musician, he may seem like a musician, he may seem like a rapper or a business person, but he's really just a criminal, buy those shoes. So I was curious, like, what else? Okay, because I don't want to be too jumpy, so I was like, okay, maybe it's not racist. I'll look online, see what else they have. And so there's this ad, with Andy Roddick, who's a champion, but he feels a little bad about it, And then there was another one with Lucy Liu, who's like basically just a cute little girl, and then Yao Ming is just a monkey on a basketball, and Allen Iverson's the devil, and 50 Cent says, I got my MBA at Marcy Projects, meaning because he's really just a drug dealer. Jay-Z, who did I say? 50 Cent. I didn't say it. Love Jay-Z. So it's like, okay, so you have one black man who's a criminal, you have the one white man who's a champion, and then you have the Asian American woman who's just like this, innocent, docile, cute little girl, and then the Chinese giant is something we clearly don't know what to do with, and then the other black man's a devil, and the other one's a drug dealer. Now, you might ask yourself, well, what percentage of the United States population are black men? I don't know, like 5, 7, you know? So like, how is it that 7% of the population is represented 3 times in an ad that doesn't sell the product? So what's really for sale, you know? And that's what I really am interested in my work. And someone gave me this ad in 2001. It's an ad for a what? A 2001 RAV4, which I like to point out, I think my friend bought her car because of this ad. Somebody was in the boardroom, they were like, black people like gold teeth, and what would make a car more seductive if it was a, you know, gold tooth, right, Nikisha? and so I was, after 4 years of looking at this ad, I was just like, what? They were like, you should do something with this. I was like, I don't know what to do with this. And after 4 years looking at it, the only thing I could think to do was this, which is basically, you know, once you remove the logo, the last thing you think this is going to be ad for is Japanese cars. And so I started looking at other ads, like, you know, what's really behind ads. And I realized, you know, if we're not trained, like, you just look at it, it could really be an ad for anything. And so I started this project, and it's called Unbranded Reflections in Black by Corporate America from 1968 to 2008. And I have to take another moment out for another public announcement. I'm cutting out stuff because I'm talking too much about other stuff. But I met the Rubel family. Don. At first, like, my gallerist brought me down to DC to Miami to meet Don Rubel. We talked. He wasn't that interested in my work. I was like, all right, thanks, cool, bye, nice to meet you. And then Kehinde Wiley had a party at Art Basel Miami Beach. You were there like 5 years ago. And I got there, like, you're supposed to get there late. I got there like a half hour early. And the only people that happened to be there were Don and Mira Rubel, who they were like, well, you know, and so I was like, hi, remember me, the guy you didn't like his art so much? And, you know, and they're like, and we started talking, and they're like, we're thinking about doing a show about black artists. Is that ghettoizing? Is that like is it too late to do that in 2006, I think it was at the time? Like, and I was just like, and I realized I had just come from another show in Poland, which was a comprehensive survey of intergenerational African American artists, and I realized we talked how that show had never happened before. And I was like, you guys actually kind of have to do this kind of show because it's never happened before in the U.S. How crazy is that there's never been an intergenerational show of contemporary African American artists? And so we talked for a while, and then like 2 weeks later, Jack, my gallerist Jack Shaman, called me. He was just like, the Rubels, they really like your work, and they're like, want to know what you're working on. And I was like, well, I started this project Unbranded, and I have like 4 of them, or 5, maybe 10, but it's going to be a 10-year project. It's called Unbranded Reflections of Black by Corporate America, and I'm going to take 2 ads for every year from 1968 to 2008. So that's 82 images. And he's like, and he told them that, and they said, fine, we'll buy it. I was like, okay, I guess I got to make it now. And basically, to just talk about how benefactors and art collectors can really change someone's life, you know, to say I just got this weird idea and they're just going to buy it before I'm even done with it, and 82 images, and in the first iteration of 30 Americans, people were kind of mad because I had 89 pieces in the show. and you know, of course, that can't all travel. But you guys at the Corcoran just happened to give me another room, so I feel like I'm getting in trouble everywhere I go. I get special privileges. But the series, I was thinking about, like, again, who's making these ads? You know, do you think African Americans are making these ads of black people? Unlikely. And I started thinking about, in 1968 is kind of when black people first started being admitted into mainstream, and I started thinking about, like, how white male perception of black identity shaped black identity in corporate culture, in corporate America, and how it's supposed to be this black experience, but it's never really an authentic black experience. And this is one of the ads from 1969. What do you guys think this is an ad for? Pants, Sharp Group. It says Slack Power, the anti-establishment post-grad slacks by his. You know, so it's basically these pants for the educated revolutionary. And I actually do have a picture of my father wearing these pants. And it says, I found it amazing that as early as 1969, which is actually when it's from. I mean, that Madison Avenue had figured out how to make, sell golf pants, to the Black Power generation. And so the series, you see so many different things. But this is an ad of the late Joe Frazier, heavyweight boxing champion, from Muhammad Ali, Thriller Manila. And I was looking at it and I thought, what do you guys think this is an ad for? Pancakes. Anybody else? Anything else? Syrup. He says, you think you can get me to eat my flapjacks without my bluebonnet? Try it. It's actually an ad for the margarine. But there's undoubtedly another reference in there. And I thought it was amazing for someone to take the heavyweight boxing champion and actually represent him in a reference that's so clearly related to the domestic servant, the slave mammy, and this power of this example of black male power kind of become kind of marginalized in this way, and how it's just so thinly veiled through the language of the advertising. But what I saw, I like using real ads because you can't just blame one person for it, but we're all kind of implicated in it, because I say that ads are reflections of a society's hopes and dreams at a moment in time. This is an ad from 2003 that I found in Ebony magazine. What do you guys think this is an ad for? Close. No, it's actually an ad for kitty litter. Tighter clumping makes it easier. And so you gotta, I'm like, how did this ad wind up in Ebony magazine? You can imagine some people in the boardroom how do we get black people to buy our kitty litter? Well, black people like watermelon. And what would make watermelon more civilized, but if all the seeds were in one place, you could just scoop them away, just like our kitty litter. And you wonder, now that the boardrooms are a little bit more diverse, it could be like a black person who's saying that. I'm like, I'm black, I like watermelon. And then all the white people being like, okay, then it's not racist. Cool. Phew. It's become so much more complicated now, because we're the fodder for these stereotypes. Masculine black hero. And so I renamed them all. I call this one the Mandingo of sandwiches. Or looking at this ad from 1987, it's for, what do you guys think this is an ad for? Cigarettes, good, Salem. But the best way to smoke a cigarette, in case you guys, I saw you smoke. So you got to sit in front of a fan, and have the smoke rise up and just blow right back in your face. Refreshing feeling of this, because it said the refreshest, And so, and as we progress, this is an ad from my aunt's always late. So this is an ad from 1979, and this is when people race stopped becoming a factor. So these people just happen to be black. I'm sure you know what this is an ad for. But where race is in a factor, you see gender roles fall into place. So the men play as the women watch. And you see the photographer, the woman on the left, you need something to do, feed him, because you see that on the right, he's got his own burger right down there, so it's just this real curious way in which they're performing props, and it's about this kind of black middle class experience, which allows you to be able to play backgammon and eat McDonald's and have your woman feed you at the same time. Haven't we come so far? Or this is one, and I had two rules because my mom, when I first showed my mom this series, she was like, "Hanky, that's stealing," and it's weird actually having a mother who's kind of relatively prominent or very prominent, because everything I do, I could be embarrassing her. I'm probably embarrassing her right now. And so I'm now have to worry about getting caught stealing, and now she's got to get in trouble for it. And I'm glad Augie Auburn, who was one of the first photographers I actually knew. I'm glad you like my work, because I was worried that you might be mad at me. I had two rules. I couldn't sell any pictures where I knew the name of the photographer, and I couldn't use any images that I wish I took. Those were my little rules for stealing. So this was an ad from 2001 also, and this is an ad for Chevy, which you can tell. But it was Black History Month, so it all makes sense. And I looked at this image, and I was like, "This is a really, really nice image." We got the the African chief, got the soldier, got the jazz musician, civil rights activist, and the college graduate. I really kind of wish I took this. Like, I can't use it. And I realized, like, wait, there's somebody missing in between the, like, chief and the soldier, and because the ad said, once upon a time in America, there was people who were proud and strong, blah, blah. It's like, you can't really sell, like, the heartbeat of America with a picture of, like, a beat-up bloody slave in the middle of it. So I renamed it, Once Upon a Time in America, there were no slaves. Because in the corporate version of American history, we came here just like everybody else. We came, from our strong roots, we fought, and, we added to the culture, got equal rights, and graduated, Forget the rest. It's not going to sell cars, I promise. And at the Rubel Family Collection, I actually got to show, as you can see, all of it. And it was actually the first time I actually got to see the whole series. And it was this amazing opportunity to actually do something that I could not do anywhere else and would never have done in the period of time. But also, while I was making the series, I kind of found all these images of other people of color that didn't fit into my kind of premise for the project. And I realized that, because I chose 1968 because it was the symbolic end of the civil rights movement with the assassination of RFK and MLK. And I chose 2008 randomly, not knowing, thinking it was going to be 40 years, not knowing it would be bookended by the year that we elected the first black president. And then I started looking at images like this one on the right from 2005, which was for Altoids, and this image on the left for a Plymouth car, and I realized how black people don't get offended when it's not us in the image. So I started juxtaposing these images, and I say, now that's funny, because it's not politically correct to show other people, African Americans in certain lights. Totally fine to do that with a host of other brown people, and there's kind of this way in which we kind of are basically recycling this old mode of kind of disturbing images, and because we have to feel like it's okay. But this image haunted me because these two images were taken 70 years apart. And they're almost identical, and the one on the right is for a fair trade tea leaf company. Everybody likes fair trade, right? And, the one on the left was for fertilizer. And, we have to imagine that there's someone halfway across the world with a basket strapped to their head under the hot sun, picking leaves, and she's just as happy as she can be because she's getting like an extra $1 or so a day, for picking leaves. And it's like this amazing way, and Jack pointed out to me that, like, I left the text, it didn't just grow by itself from the other image, because it said something to me, and Jack was like, it's because, we are the fertilizer of these ideas, we perpetuate, this idea of it. It's as long as it's somebody else doing the dirty work, it's fine with me, and imagine that we're helping them out, and then I'm just going to skip ahead because I cried and did all this other stuff I didn't mean to do. I'm going to end with showing you three things. This piece, and I have to point my friend Wyatt, because he told me, like, Hank, in 2006, he said, I really love your work, but it really kind of bums me out. And so it put me on this agenda to, like, try to make work that I thought was good, but made me feel good too. And in 2008, I met Ernest Withers, who's the photographer, also deceased, who took this image. And in 1968, the Memphis Sanitation Workers March. And I found it incredibly amazing because just 8 years before I was born, it was necessary in this country for people to collectively affirm their humanity, by saying, together, I am a man. Especially because the phrase that I grew up with was, I am the man. And I found it kind of amazing how this change from the civil rights movement to the hip hop generation of it being this collective statement to this basically selfish statement was really profound. And I also wanted to think about how I could remix that term or those terms. And so I created this series of paintings. The first one, I am 3/5 of a man, thinking about the Constitution was written, African Americans were considered 3/5 of a human being. Am I not a man and a brother inspired the statement for the abolitionist pen, inspired that one. I'm a man. And then I started just kind of, I be a man, black vernacular English, a man I am, Sam, I am. Be a man. Thinking about Vietnam War, my father went to Vietnam, and people volunteering. I'm your man. A man, MIA. Again, thinking about the war. Sojourner Truth. Ain't I a woman? And the feminist movement. I am a woman. And then the last line I read as a poem, where it says, "I'm the man. Who's the man? You the man. What a man. I am man. I am human. I am many. I am. Am I? I am. I am. I am. Amen." And because it hit me that. Basically, for anything else that I might want out of life, the only gift that you're promised is your consciousness. And in life, I hope. And shouldn't we be thankful? And because you see people like Stephen Hawking who can't move, and is far ahead of us in his thinking. And I think, okay, what if I get maimed? What if I do this? But what if I don't? Does it matter if I do or if I don't? I can still contribute to society. And so that's one of those pieces. And then another piece I'm going to show you is this piece that, as was Paul mentioned, I collaborate with a lot of other artists. And I started collaborating really because when I left to my own devices, I make depressing work about blackness. And that's not all I think about, actually. And it's just true, I swear. So I started collaborating with Ryan and Jessica Ingram and Bayate Ross Smith and Jorge Sanchez, who are some of my really good friends from the Bay Area. We made this piece for the Oakland Airport where we wanted to take a portrait of a community. And we looked at how all these eyes from different genders, different ethnicities, different ages merged together. And we created a mosaic of Oakland. And it's called Along the Way. And we wanted to do something that kind of showed how there's all of these people whose lives intersect and cross all the times throughout their lives, and they never really acknowledge each other or interact, but they actually are still part of a community. When tragedies happen, like what happened last week in Oakland, or what happens in not during 9/11, we realized that we're a community, and we're not just a community because of class, because of race, or gender, or whatever else we want to kind of categorize ourselves by. And also, as Susan mentioned, this is the project where my thesis is that it's political because we forget in our society, it's so celebrity infused, that everyone is beautiful. Beauty cannot be defined by anyone but you. And if you look at anyone for long enough, you recognize their beauty. And there's this really amazing opportunity when you, as we did, walked up to 2,000 strangers and said, can you stare into the camera for 30 seconds? And having no one say no. And having to figure out how to make a project like this. We'd never made a video mosaic. We didn't know what it was. We didn't know how to do it. And we just literally figured it all out, through, you having our little point and shoot cameras, which we put on movie mode, and like walking up to strangers and doing that, and buying a DVD and using, sneaking into our old school's facilities to learn how to use this equipment. But then there's these beautiful moments where you see this amazing juxtaposition with these two people kind of doing the same thing, but in alternate ways. And what happens next? Oh yeah, I love this part because Bayate shot one on the right and Jorge shot one on the left. And Jessica, a different collaborator, saw how there's this picture of this clown standing there looking bored and this little kid clowning around. And the juxtaposition of that, and so it's like such a kind of fun piece for me, at least, to look at. I've seen it thousands of times. We got to show it at Sundance. This is a couple who I asked him on the right to make love to the camera. That's his girlfriend. And it's just so funny because, people would say, like, we'd run into people like, oh yeah, someone said they saw me at the airport. And like the way, or one guy, like, who's an artist, like he said, like, he was bringing stuff that was too sharp. They were like giving him all this trouble because whatever he was bringing to the airport on the plane was too sharp. They're like, no, that's the guy from the sign outside, he's fine, and how, like they start to get, the celebrity access because of who they are, and people recognizing them. And so with this collective that we started, Cost Collective, we started to make work that's really about trying to put the public in public art. And so in this piece, It's like 15 minutes. I'm not going to show you all of it, and I'm going to just show you the last the last project I'm working on that's opening at what's that say? I don't see it. It's opening at where's it opening, Omalara? Yeah, so in January 2000, and Omalara Williams is here, who's working on this project called Question Bridge with me and a few of my other collaborators, which opens in January at the Oakland Museum, the Brooklyn Museum, Salt Lake Art Center, Sundance Film Festival, and the Chastain Art Center in Atlanta, and all in January 2012. And I just want to show you guys the trailer for it because it's really exciting for us to be able to have such an ambitious project open in such an ambitious way. So this is.
Black man. Do you want to get out of the situation that you're in?
What is the reluctance for taking responsibility for improving our communities?
Are your children better or worse off as a result of your involvement?
Why wouldn't you be happy with your son being gay?
Why are you so violent?
Why do you have that take mentality?
Why are you afraid of being intelligent?
Why?
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 Why? What I want to know is why.
I believe that we've incorporated a lot of things that are unhealthy to us.
We are supposed to be tough.
I can't let them see no type of sucker.
Along with various other stereotypes.
The level of mentorship in our community is not as strong as it possibly could be.
When I came up, crack was a quick way for a black man to make $1 million.
Sometimes I think because we think we're black, we're some other kind of human beings, but we're just like most other human beings.
Why didn't y'all leave us the blueprint?
We did leave you a blueprint.
We just didn't tell you where it was.
That's something that we dropped the ball on.
What do you fear?
That something will harm my children.
I fear success. Am I the only one who has problem eating chicken, watermelon, and bananas in front of white people?
Hold on, bro. Y'all niggas crazy.
That word, we have to stop using it.
I think black people can say nigga anytime they want.
How dare you? What right do you have to use this word?
A lot of nigga questions for the rapper.
What is common to all of us that we can say makes us who we are?
This is the easiest question in the world to answer.
The thing that we have in common is that we are male and we are black.
All right, my question is, I try to live good, but I'm surrounded by bad. And I want to know what it is I could do to do better and live peaceful, surrounded by all evil. How can I do that?
That's that. We laughed, we cried, thank you guys. I mean, the Question Bridge is really exciting for us, my other collaborators, Bayate Ross-Smith, Chris Johnson, and Kamal Sinclair, because we're calling it's the first kind of identity-oriented project where actually it's black men defining black male identity on their terms. All we did is ask black men to ask questions of other black men, and we have over 160 subjects we shot in 12 different cities. And it's rather than the researcher, this is a project where the researchers and the experts are the subjects, of the study. And it's going to be really exciting to see kind of what happens next with it. Where's John Edmonds? Where is he? Where is he? What's your question? Stand up. I told you I was going to call on you. You didn't come up with a question? I think it's fun to call on people because no one expects to get called on.
Well, I guess
one question I have really been thinking about since your visit today is how is it that you choose to take a really personal story that has had such an emotional impact on you and really bridge the gap between this really emotionally charged side of the work, as well as this kind of because you said earlier that you have to laugh and you have to cry. So I guess what to you is the point of
doing it all?
Yeah, I guess.
That's all you could come up with? No, I'm teasing him because I was showing him this work of these artists I really liked today, and he was just like, eh. And he felt like the work wasn't subjective enough, and so I told him I'd call on him because I wanted him to offer something. I appreciate the question because I know exactly what you mean. I mean, the only reason I do this work is because I have to, when my cousin was murdered and I went from being the baby who nobody cared. I mean, y'all cared about me, but Sunga was the one that people paid attention to, and I had to now talk and act like, me, Heather. I'm not cool. I was never cool in high school. I had to be this person that people maybe listened to or admired because I was the only other male in our family, and I couldn't just let his legacy, his memory, just go to waste and just me, hide from it, because it was so obvious, especially happening, having, like I said, the bad luck of him being murdered, is the only reason I'm successful, and that's really, a real difficult thing for me, because of course I give the rest of it back just to have him for a second, but I think there's these things in life, that. He would say, I did it on purpose just because I wanted you to live out your dream, because he was always so proud of me and always encouraged me to tell you can do it, just don't, believe in yourself. And it's, and that's what happened, I had to try to do my best to fill his shoes with my whole family. And it's if they, didn't kind of force me to, why'd you send me that image? My Aunt Leslie gave me that image that I had to deal with, because they recognized I was given a gift, and hopefully the world will be somehow affected through the stories I'm sharing with you, the way that I was changed through my cousin's experience, and maybe some of you are changed through your experience with me. So.
I missed the time.
My name's Mike Spencer, by the way. I saw the exhibit, I guess in October, we saw the exhibit, and I was really moved by your work, for one. And yesterday I went to the portrait gallery and saw, I guess, The Time and the Struggle and The Blacklist, and looking at the work of Du Bois and the contributions that he's made with the souls of black folk, and looking at your work is the most humbling thing that I've probably done, I think, this year. And so as another young black man, it's nice, and it makes me really proud to call you a brother. So keep up the good work, to you as well, and to your family for being so gracious, and I think even transparent through it all. It's really nice to sit here and wow, this is really good stuff. So keep it up, man.
Appreciate it. And thank you for coming, and you keep up the good work too. Win whatever you do. Hi.
Hey, how you doing? Hey.
Daryl.
I read on the comments next to the exhibit, there's a comment there written by someone, and it said, I'm tired of you black artists using race as a motivating factor for your work. And it said, just forget about slavery, leave it alone. And then I read a quote by Lorna Simpson that said, why is it that when images of black people are used in art, it becomes less universal? So I was just wondering, especially with your Strange Fruit series, how do you respond to people who will say that seeing repeated images of hanging somehow trivializes it, or it's something that we don't need to see anymore, or the point's already been gotten? Because we see, although the art in the 30 Americans, a lot of it is not overtly racial, but the first one you walk in, you see Gary Simmons' piece with the noose, then you see your Strange Fruit series. So I just wondering, how do you respond to people who have that kind of opinion?
So you're right. I'm like, I'd love to not make this work, and if I wasn't haunted by it, I wouldn't, I think I think I'm definitely trying to deal with old stuff, and I'm definitely, in the art world, the word didactic is considered kind of a bad word, and for me, that's kind of what my goal is, so, I want to talk about stuff that we think we're over, I want to talk about stuff that, we, have moved past, because I think if we just accept things as they are, we do forget the point of life, and the people who don't want to see it are probably the people who I'm trying to make work for, so, I really think that kind of criticism is valid and important, but I think it's also, I love to speak to those people in person, because I'm really curious about what exactly they mean, because lately my whole agenda is like, I'm really trying to find a way out of blackness. I don't remember exactly what happened, but Walter Mosley had this really great speech on MLK Day 2 years ago, and he was talking about kind of how, he basically said, if you stop calling yourself a white man, I'll stop being black. And there's this way which, we talk about how stuff is racist and racism, and I believe if you believe in race, and there's this show that I can't wait to see tomorrow at the Natural History Museum that kind of contends with that. If you believe in race, you're a racist. You can't actually believe in race and not be a racist, because race was not made for the other races. Race was made so that one race is the race by which others are defined by. So and so if he maybe he's one of those people that just say he's not white, he's not black, he's just clear. He's just clean slate, and I'd love to give him a hug. It seems, does that answer your question or no? Because I think I do want to please everybody, but I also feel like I can only speak to those people who actually I can interact with, and that's what's good about, being a real person and meeting some of you.
Yo,
Augie.
I was curious, how are you using the social media?
How am I using social media? Well, Question Bridge, I didn't pay him to say that. We're hoping is like we really want Question Bridge, this kind of question-generated, what we're calling we want it to be kind of a social media site, actually, where it's starting with African American men, uploading, asking questions. We basically it's a campaign to get 200,000 black men in this campaign to represent and redefine black male identity, and to show that there's as much diversity within any demographic as there is outside of it. And we hope that other people will join and create their own question bridges about whatever communities that they define themselves by, and hopefully it's not race-oriented or gender-oriented, but that, and so I guess, and we know the site will launch in January and then fully in June 2012, and and my collaborator says she wants it to be the Twitter of healing dialogue and the Google Earth of identity.
Just two quick statements. One, I found it interesting that in the beginning you were talking about a self-search that you were on, and your imagery kind of went through the same thing, right? There was a branding by the media of blacks in a way, and then there was kind of a search through that seemed to kind of transcend from blackness in your art to what seems to be a new kind of motif of humanity, right? That last picture with the face and all those different, all the people becoming the face of humanity. So that seems to be maybe expressive of the transition that you've made personally, which is kind of cool. And then my last statement is, on a personal note, that you were going to transform into the butterfly no matter what. It wasn't based upon any particular
He's known
thing.
me since he's one of Sanga's best friends, and like was always, you know.
I just wanted to give you
appreciate
that. All right.
Thanks, Justin. I guess the reason I haven't had the luxury of actually going to. Last year, I got to go to Angola, South Africa, and Senegal in the same year, and you realize how different the Africa is. You know how different culturally people are, how different language-wise, how different people look, how different people act. You know, and then going to Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, and going all over Europe and Italy and France and Holland and showing my work, and you realize. Still, the issues that my work is about, even though it seems like it's about race, is really about, you could argue it's really about class, and it's really about the human experience, and it's just so easy to talk about it when it's about blackness, you know, the challenges, because it's so, everyone knows, you know, that's black, you know, and hopefully the reason that I'm in Europe is because I realized that when you go to Europe, blackness means something totally different over there. You know, the black experience is more complicated in a way. People of African descent have it easier than Arabs there, you know, and there's a way in which I'm trying to understand, and I'm always trying to figure out, and actually I really learned it when I went to California, because in California, like, you know, you have like, there's white people, then there's Latinos, then there's Asians, and then there's like South Asians and black people, like, you know, and so like, so I had to like flip the script. I was like, okay, Martin Luther King, but you know, it's really about Dolores Huerta and you know, and Cesar Chavez, and realizing that like all the issues that I was trained were the important factors weren't as important, and so so hopefully what you'll see in my work as I get to travel and maybe make work about, you know, what happened in Cambodia, and make work about other things that, you know, people will see, and I will see, how the nuances that aren't so easily to point out speak, you know, profoundly about the challenges of humanity and the beauty. You know, it's just been all black men who spoke. You're the last one.
Okay, I'll be the last one. I'm reading Tere's book right now about post-racial and post-black, and I was trying to understand how I would feel looking at your work, how I feel looking at Kerouac's work, and how I feel looking at your mom's work, and looking at the generational differences along the way. And if there's 40 million black people in America, there's 40 million ways of being black, and this idea of post-blackness would mean that there was a less than 40 million ways of being black before, if there's a post and a pre. So I'm trying to understand maybe what your perspective would be on the diversity of blackness, and when you run into somebody, the cultural things that we do have in common, but that are very distinctive and different or the same. And how do we navigate this development as people who are in the art world, who are trying to write about and define the development of, you know, the African American in American art and global art and diasporan art? Where are we? Sorry, that's a big question for you, isn't it?
Go see Question Bridge on January 12th, 2012. No, I mean, that's what that project is about. Like, I don't know what blackness is. I don't know what the black male identity is. There isn't, and I think, I mean, I'm not a post-black artist yet, you know, and I feel like it's important that some people aren't. Like, I loved it when I met a you know, African-American male artist. Like, my work's not about black people. It's about white people, you know, or he's like, I don't care about black experience. And I feel like we've made it somewhere when some black people can make work that they just think that, you know, it's not about that experience, and but you know, it's probably your fault, you know. I'm still kind of dealing with that, and I really do see myself as kind of following, you know, doing the other things that my mother's work, you know, didn't do, because speaking more to a very specific experience, and but also kind of in the same vein, doesn't do. Am I? I don't know. So that's I mean, that's it. I mean, it's complicated. I mean, I really think when making work, I mean, we get in these conversations. I like, do you like it or do you not? You know, and if you don't like it, I don't blame you. If you do, I'm really appreciate it, and I'd love to have discourse. And I don't really care about the post-black thing. I think it's kind of fun, but when you know, like my struggle is there's, you know, there's more people in prison in the U.S. right now than there were slaves at any specific time in the United States, and my work barely talks about that. Like, why am I thinking about something that was happened 150 years ago? At least I got to like 50 years ago in this show. Why can't I talk about the challenges that are happening right now in my work, and why is that just in magazines? Why can't we talk about that in art? I care more about why the work is speaking to the past and how it can speak to the other challenges of the present than I do about. But I hope he sells more of the book. It seems like it's good.
I think we have time for 2 more questions.
2 more questions.
Hi, how's it going, Hank?
It's a black man.
Toyin says hi, by the way.
Huh?
Toyin says hi.
Oh, Toyin. Hey, we met.
Yeah. I'm a student, and you said you wanted to kind of like, reach out to every demographic. So the biggest thing that I struggle with is critiques, because I'm improving my craft every day, but in a lot of ways, I have a pretty strong idea of what I want to say. So like critiques kind of get tough for me because no one wants to engage in what I'm trying to say and maybe let me know, well, here's a like more functional way of using these formal skills to say this. They just kind of say, well, why didn't you just do that? And that doesn't push me. So like, how did you deal with that? You mentioned moving from photography to kind of like design-esque stuff. So like, are there any other situations where you kind of had to like, I don't know.
I guess my first question would be like, did you do that the other people were suggesting?
Yeah, I've given it a shot.
All of it?
I've genuinely given them shots.
Because I mean, it's like, I love critiques. I mean, I had to do a gallery talk today, and I made it a critique. I love critiques because it's really when people like, 'cause it's kind of like, what do they call it in advertising, like demographic testing. Like, it's like, it depends. Like, if you want to speak to that, the people that aren't getting your work aren't people you care about, then you can throw it out. But if they are people you care about, you should hear what they have to say, and to the degree that you can stand it. Like what I do is like, I throw out all I like, is it terrible? Is it boring? Do you hate it? What's wrong with it? And if people's critiques of it, their harshest critiques of it, resonate with me, then I will maybe try to alter something. But if I still don't care, then I know I actually really feel comfortable with what I'm putting out, But it's only after you like face it, and ask, because no one's going to just come in and say, why are you dealing with slavery? I'm sure maybe somebody thought it, but no one's just going to come out and say, I don't like it because it's dealing with this old crap. And I would be like, I want to hear that because I want to understand, is it you don't want to deal with it, or is it that you're afraid to deal with it, or is it that you're just so evolved that it doesn't matter? And so for me, like, I definitely, like I said, I want everybody to like me. I want to like be a person that is engaging to a much broader audience than my work is engaging to now. And so I'm, to the degree that I can, and still, be not embarrassed by my mom, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, because I think it's important I'll bend over backwards for any friend just to make sure they understand that they're important to me, because I learned through school and through my life that it's not the people who you think matter that really matter. Like, I had got my gallery because some dude who I didn't really know that well and didn't particularly care for, after we graduated grad school, went, and he was an art handler at this gallery in New York. They had a show, and he was like, well, if you guys like that kind of work, he barely talked. Because I can't even imagine if you guys like that kind of work, I guess I know this other guy you might like. And they called me up, and I've been working with this gallery in Chelsea for 7 years. And my first museum shows, like this girl who was like a know-it-all in class, I couldn't stand her. She became the assistant curator at Yerba Buena, which commissioned Winter in America, and that billboard. It's just like, I'm glad I never said anything. There's those things, like, so I've really grown to appreciate everyone, because you just don't know who's going to make a difference in your life. So I think it's important to struggle, but it's just like, it may take just, a couple more years, and you may just need to go to Indonesia and find that audience if that's, with who you feel your work really speaks to,
Hi.
Hi.
I'm a student at the Corcoran. I just have a quick question. How do different generations interpret, I guess, your branded series? Because it deals with like a lot of advertising that younger kids are like engulfed in every day versus like people who don't see Nike every other day.
Well, I think what's interesting for me about that is there is a generation gap in that, like, those of us who grew up in the 80s and on have grown up in a society that's everything has a brand on it, and I think the society that my parents grew up in, like, that was something that became more and more popular but now my father has an iPad, an iPhone, an iMac, and and what I find fascinating is how we're all conditioned. Like, those computers are training us how to think. I can't solve problems on a PC. I just can't. And so basically my way of solving problems is being branded. And how will that power be used against me in the future, since they have all my text messages, they know everywhere I've been, they can see all the photographs I've taken. So it's not just about a logo, it's about my whole identity is actually shaped through my Apple computer, which I used to give this lecture. And and I struggle with why I cannot see myself as independent from a brand. And I think you should. I hope you will ask the elder people in your generation about their interest in my work, and I hope it speaks to some aspects of their experience. But I can only hope. So I think that's it. But thank you. And my email is hank@hankwillisthomas.com for those who didn't get to send their questions.